Welcome to the As Seen by AI channel. Right now, there's a massive war being fought for the future of, well, everything. And the main battlefield? It's that little device sitting in your pocket. But this fight isn't about better cameras or bigger screens. Nope, it's about intelligence.
So, who's actually winning this thing? In one corner, you've got Google's Gemini AI, which seems to be getting smarter by the day. And in the other corner, you have Apple's Siri, which, well, it just got a new coat of paint called Apple Intelligence. The promises from Apple are huge, but the reality? That's what we're here to figure out.
To get to the bottom of this, we're going to cut through all the fancy marketing talk. We're putting both of these assistants through a series of simple, real-world tests. You know the kind of stuff you'd actually want your phone to do for you. Let's see who really comes out on top.
Okay, let's start with something that should be an absolute cakewalk. Imagine you're cooking. You ask your phone, start a 5-minute timer for sausages and a 12-minute timer for fries. Super simple, right? How hard could that be?
And wow, right out of the gate, it's not even close. Google's Gemini gets it perfectly. It creates two separate, clearly labeled timers, no problem. Siri, on the other hand, it gets totally confused and just mushes them together into one single timer. That's a complete fail on the most basic task we could think of.
All right, maybe that was just a fluke. Let's try something that tests their memory. We created a couple of alarms, and then, a moment later, we asked a simple follow-up. Can you delete both of those alarms we just created? This is all about context. Can the AI remember what it just did 2 seconds ago?
Gemini nailed it. Immediately understood what those alarms referred to and got rid of them. Siri? Oh boy, it was a total meltdown. It had no idea what we were talking about. It couldn't find the alarms it literally just made. Instead, it just started searching the web. It's like it has zero short-term memory.
Now for the big one. This is a feature Apple itself promised would be a game changer for its new AI, understanding what's inside your apps. So we asked it to do something specific. Find an event itinerary from a PDF that was attached to an email.
And this result just says it all. Gemini found it. Simple as that. Siri, though, it failed in like 3 different ways. Sometimes it would just disappear. Poof, no response. Other times it tried to pass the question to ChatGPT, which is useless because ChatGPT can't read your emails, or it would just say, sorry, can't find anything. This isn't a bug. This is a core promised feature that is completely broken.
You know, this quote from a user really sums it up perfectly. The feeling out there isn't just slight annoyance. It's a genuine sense of disbelief. People are wondering how, after all these years and all this money, Siri can still be this bad.
And that brings us to the really big question here. We've seen what's happening. Siri is getting crushed. But why? How is it possible that one of the richest, most powerful companies in human history is getting left in the dust in the most important tech race of our generation?
I mean, let's just put this number up here for a second. $3 trillion. That's Apple's valuation. They have more cash than some countries. So you can be sure this is not a money problem. The problem is something much, much deeper.
You know, this story starts to sound really familiar. It's a classic in the tech world. A giant, dominant company gets comfortable, misses a massive shift in technology, and suddenly finds itself irrelevant. Just think about Nokia or BlackBerry with the smartphone. The scary question now is whether AI is about to become Apple's smartphone moment.
So, let's break it down. The reasons for this AI crisis at Apple really boil down to a few things. Their entire corporate strategy, their famous stance on privacy, and what sounds like a whole lot of internal chaos.
So here's the fundamental issue. Siri was built on something called narrow AI. Think of it like a list of commands. It's programmed to do very specific things, like set a timer. But this new world of generative AI, it's all about conversation and context and learning. Siri's entire foundation is basically obsolete for this new era. It was built for a different world. And this timeline just makes the whole thing painful to look at. Apple was first. They had this huge head start in 2011. It was revolutionary, but then they just sat on it. They let it stagnate while competitors caught up. And then bam, 2022 happens, ChatGPT arrives, and the entire game changes overnight, leaving Apple completely flat-footed. So you've got this perfect storm of problems. First, Apple's famous strategy of waiting to perfect a product is great for hardware, but it's a disaster for AI, which moves at lightning speed. Then there's privacy. We all love it, but it's become a handicap here. Great AI needs a ton of data to learn, and Apple's privacy-first approach is starving its own systems. On top of that, you hear all these stories of teams inside Apple fighting over what Siri should even be, leading to missed deadlines and delayed features. It's a recipe for failure.
And if you want one single story that sums up this entire mess, get this. Apple actually published a commercial showing off a cool new Siri feature, a feature that didn't actually exist. It wasn't in the product. They had to pull the ad. I mean, it's just a stunning disconnect between the marketing and the reality. It's become a public embarrassment.
So after all that, we have to ask the billion, or rather trillion-dollar question. Can Apple actually catch up? Or is it just too late to close the gap in this race for the future?
Well, the brutal reality is that Google isn't just one step ahead anymore. The term experts are using is leapfrogging. That means the gap isn't closing, it's actually getting wider. Google is weaving its Gemini AI into the fabric of everything it does, while Apple is still trying to get timers to work properly.
And here's a wild twist that sounds like it's from a movie. Johnny Ive, the design legend behind the iPhone, the iMac, the iPod, basically modern Apple. He's now reportedly working with OpenAI, the ChatGPT company. They're trying to build a new dedicated AI device. One of the key architects of Apple's kingdom is now building a potential rival to its future.
All of which leads us back to that one final provocative question. We are watching the biggest, wealthiest tech company in the world visibly struggle to keep up with the most important technological shift since the smartphone itself. So, is this Apple's Nokia moment? For the first time in a very long time, the future of the giant seems genuinely uncertain.